viewers, welcome to our English home. In this video, let us look at certain strengths and weaknesses people have and how do we make our weaknesses as strengths by taking Gandhiji as a great example. In this video, we have to learn. So here, I mentioned certain strengths people have because after graduation, when youth, particularly when they go for interviews, they may face certain questions: what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? So here we have certain strengths. So that strengths are ambitious, authentic, logical, creative, dedicated, enthusiastic, honest, persistent, versatile, motivated, optimistic, responsible, open-minded, self-controlled, trustworthy. These are certain personal strengths, and certain strengths are there. That kind of strengths we can acquire through our past experiences. They are great communication, leadership experience, writing skills, analytical skills, time management, excellent presenter, problem solving, effective listener, great planner, etc. These are certain strengths we can acquire through our past experiences. And some other strengths we can acquire through our education. They are accounting, marketing, finance, web designing, artistic, drafting, designing, medicine, carpentry, biology, computer science, architecture, social media, etc., etc., through our education, through our learning. And now let us look at the major thing, list of weaknesses here, because with strengths everyone can see their successes, but with weaknesses they may fumble, they feel ridiculous. Just because of that weakness, some of them may fail in their lives. So we have to take that weakness as a strength. That is very, very necessary in these days, particularly for youth. Here I mentioned certain weaknesses: impatient, passive, lazy, aggressive, selfish, fearful, lethargic, and the major one here we are going to see in this video is shyness. How Gandhiji made his shyness as a strength in his later life, and by taking him as a great example, even we to try to make our lives successful by changing our weaknesses as strengths. So before that, we go to look at it by taking his biography, autobiography. So Gandhiji was the preeminent leader of Indian independence movement in British ruled India, and he led nationwide campaigns for easing poverty, expanding women's rights, ending untouchability, but above all for achieving self-rule and independence. So in getting independence to India, his role is very prominent. And then he employed non-violence, peace, vegetarianism throughout his life. So with this, he was a great example, and he was called as a votary of truth. And coming to his this particular extract, Shyness My Shield, it is an extract taken from his autobiography, My Experiments with Truth. In this, he wrote down his weakness, shyness, and how it had become a strength in his later life. And the lesson is about the incidents where he felt shy to express his views in public gatherings or meetings when he was in London. Let us look at one by one. And he went to London in 1888 to do barrister course. As a word given to his mother, he followed vegetarianism throughout his life, and during that time he read Mr. Howard's The Ethics of Diet book and strongly decided to be a vegetarian all his life. And in September 1890, Gandhi was invited to attend the Second International Vegetarian Congress in London by Dr. Oldfield. In 1891, at the age of 21, he was elected for that executive committee, and even you can see Oldfield and Gandhi in that vegetarian committee photograph. And after he was elected as a member to the Vegetarian Society, he was invited to attend various meetings. And he said that when his turn came to express his opinion in such meetings, he could not speak in meetings just because of his shyness to speak, particularly in English. He was called a drone by Dr. Oldfield because he was able to speak fluently with the world when they are two. And when Gandhi's turn comes to speak in front of others, more than six, or in public gatherings, he was fumbled with his shyness, and he was tongue-tied all the time. So that's why Oldfield encouraged him, don't be as idler, don't be as drone, but be as a banter. But Gandhiji felt always tongue-tied in his meetings. And the first incident he said in this extract, where he felt very shy to produce his, to give his opinion in a public gathering. Here means the president of Vegetarian Society, Mr. Hales, decided to suspend Dr. Allinson from Vegetarian Society because Allinson favored birth control movement. Mr. Hill felt that Allinson was refusing to regard the Puritan morals, so he decided to suspend him. Gandhiji had a great respect on these two, both Mr. Hales and Allinson, but in that context, Gandhiji tried to support Allinson because with that good vegetarian food, they can be active and energetic. And whenever he tried to support Dr. Allinson, just because of his shyness, he was not able to speak with Mr. Hales in that public meeting, and he sit idle, and he sat down his thoughts in writing. That's instead of speaking in front of that public gathering, he sit idle, he sit calm. So with that he felt ashamed, and even after that he resigned to that committee. And the next incident he mentioned was that he went to Ventnor with his friend Mazumudar. There they met Mr. Howard, the great writer for Gandhiji, because Mr. Howard wrote The Ethics of Diet. He was the author of that book. And Gandhiji, when he was studying barrister, he read this book and he was influenced by that book. So Mr. Howard invited Gandhiji to speak in a meeting to promote vegetarianism at Ventnor. So Gandhiji accepted it and prepared his script to read in that meeting. And but he could not read the speech. He wrote and he prepared just because of his shyness when his turn came to speak. He was fumbled and asked his friend Mazumudar to read the script which he prepared. And he also expressed that to speak extempore would have been out of question for him in his life. And he was ashamed of himself and sad at heart for his incapacity to speak in front of others, just because of his shyness. And the next incident he mentioned here means his last effort to make a speech on the eve of his departure for India after completing his barrister course. He invited his vegetarian friends to dinner in the Holborn restaurant. He said that usually all dinners are for enjoyment, but the West has developed the thing into an art. They are celebrated with great eclat, music, and with certain speeches. So speeches are must in their meetings, such kind of meetings. So he prepared well and planned to give a humorous speech by taking an anecdote. So when his turn comes, he addressed audience with a pleasure and started his speech. But his memory failed entirely, and he failed to make a humorous speech, and he felt ridiculous even in that gathering. He simply thanked and sat down. These are the three incidents he mentioned in this extract. And particularly he said that when he was in London, he was embarrassed with his shyness. He failed to make any impression on his audience, however hard he tried wherever in that kind of meetings. He said that he got over this shyness only in South Africa. Means after came back to India from London, he went to South Africa for his practice there, and there he got over from this shyness. And he also even there it was not possible for him to speak impromptu. That he said. However, he confidently said that shyness might occasionally exposing him to laughter, but his constitutional shyness has been no disadvantage whatever in his life, he said confidently. Sometimes his shyness exposing him to laughter, but his constitutional shyness has been no longer a weakness to him in his life. He admitted that his shyness and hesitancy in speech was once an annoyance, but then it's a great pleasure for him in his life. The greatest benefit he had with this shyness was it taught him economy of words, and then it taught him the habit of restraining his thoughts. These two things he developed just because of that weakness, shyness. So that's why it had become a great strength to him in his later life. So here, in the words of Gandhiji, he said, I quote, proneness to exaggerate, to suppress or modify the truth wittingly or unwittingly is a natural weakness of man. So he said that in order to surmount from the above qualities, the best thing is silence. So that silence helped him a lot. With his shyness, he was silent, and that silence helped him to make him a great person. So he says that silence is a part of spiritual discipline, and it made him a votary of truth. Yes, Gandhi is the best example for a votary of truth and non-violence. So here we come to the end. At the end of the extract, Gandhiji said that he suffered initially and later benefited from his shyness, from his weakness. It had taught him the economy of words. Shyness helped him in restraining his thoughts. He never regretted anything he spoke or wrote because that restrained his thoughts. And it helped him to economy of words. That's why he never regretted anything, whatever he spoke or wrote. And he concluded that his shyness helped him to grow and in search of his truth, in search for truth, it had become his shield and buckler in his life. So, even we too have to make our weaknesses as strengths by constant practice. Thank you. I hope you like this video, and let us meet in next video. Bye for now.